so the notion of resource, what is the paradigm, what is the framework for resource allocation that is applied, what are the values that are behind the resource allocation is something of question. And what has come out really strongly in the literature certainly is land tenure and land rights. If we're thinking about a balanced urban-rural development, land tenure is critical. I keep going on about female empowerment. I spoke about it yesterday, but I'll talk about it again. The land tenure and female empowerment in some of the low middle income countries around the world are so tightly linked. You can track through the impact on health just if you look at land and female empowerment. I'm not going to read through all of that, but thinking about, if it's about saying, what, as a country or as a society, what do we want this to be all about? Where urban development has been about economic growth, the engine, the city is the engine of the country, as it were. And that's fine, that of course is important for economic growth, but it's the balance that we apply to that for the rural living as well. And it takes you right out into thinking about trade arrangements, support for rural livelihoods, diversity of rural livelihoods. And if you think about, again, the overlay of climate change on top of this and the impacts that is having, certainly in Australia, we're seeing it very strongly, the impacts on rural livelihood and mental health already. How we think about that whole development paradigm is critical. I'm not going to go through that. That was what the Commission said the social determinants of health are all about. I don't mean for you to read through them, but the point I want to make is that local government does all of that. Local government deals with issues of power, deals with issues of resources, deals with services, deals with conditions of daily living, your education, access to education in the city, health services. I won't go there because of discussions that are happening at the moment. But local government provides a lovely a vehicle through which you deal with the social determinants of health equity on that very immediate basis. And so what might be helpful from the global work? What is it that helps for making health equity that core business across all of the sectors? And this could be at the national level, but it's very relevant at the local level, I think. Well, the urban governance, like I said, that has come out so strongly. The notion of the stewardship model rather than the individual approach being one of the key pillars of good urban governance for health equity. And this systematic, just sort of a concern for every policy, every practice, every system, every structure that gets put in place. It mightn't be its ultimate goal, the health equity isn't the goal of every single sector, but just being cognizant of what the sector is doing in a way that could affect health or health equity is something that local government can do, local governance can do. And you've got a whole variety of levers to make that happen. Again, I showed this, ignore Gordon Brown for the moment. I have to defend him, being a Scot, he's so stoic. But putting health equity into the policies, systems and programmes, and having that championed at the highest level of government. So Gordon Brown was a conference that we had on health equity. It was opened by the Prime Minister. Wonderful signal that central government was taking health equity seriously. We'll see. But having that at the local level, local government saying health equity is a central goal or a central value of what we do. We need that to happen locally. And I just want to talk about the Just and Sustainable Cities network that's been fairly recently set up across South America, being led by Brazil. You can see across these a number of cities. And this really, what has happened there has been led by, at the city level, led by the mayors, whatever they're called in their various jurisdictions, that have said we want fair cities and we want sustainable cities, and that's going to be our central operating principle, how we think about how we design our cities, what we do there. Like, granted, South America has a real history of that sort of approach, but they've really positioned it very strongly. And this is one of the favelas in Brazil. I've got a before and after picture that I've taken from a colleague. So this Semergo's organisation was set up to facilitate that Just and Sustainable Cities platform. So a favela beforehand, actually that, to me, that looks like some of the streets of Glasgow or some of the areas of Glasgow. But this is in Brazil. So the before and the after. And one of the questions that we've been asking from a research perspective, we've been asking is how, through good urban governance, how have you managed to affect that change? What is it what were the enablers, what were the levers that took you from that to that? There's an evaluation getting underway within the various Just and Sustainable Cities where they've got examples of this sort of improvement to see what it really means for health and health equity. And in relation to what's happening elsewhere around the world, WHO Europe Office, the Healthy Cities programme in Europe, have now just taken sort of almost, not directly from the work of the Commission, but have been energised, I suppose, by the work of the Commission on Social Determinants to take as their focal point health equity in all local policies. So that notion of bringing health equity as a core value into local government. And these are their thematic areas that they're about to roll out. And I suppose for this part of the world as well, where healthy cities are in place, it would be lovely to make that connection. But of course, huge challenges for getting social determinants of health equity in place. There are many barriers to that. Whether again at the global, the national, the local level. But what has come out as some of the things that the cities that we were working with in the Urban Settings Network was these issues. So the external pressures and the vertical processes. We were speaking about the urban governance, and so the local urban governance being a facilitator of health equity at that level. Not having it connected to the vertical processes was seen as a real barrier. I won't read through all of that. I'm sure you're very familiar with this within your working, daily working environment.